So I just want to take a quick moment to remind you that the revolution is not going to be televised. The news that is relevant and pertinent, that affects all of us, is never going to be seen on a broadcast. You're never going to get a memo or a bulletin. You won't get the group text cluing you into what's really going on. It's really up to you and your intuition and your keen sensibilities to pick up on what's really going on around you. Don't really expect everybody around you to be clued into what you are, because you are experiencing and sensing things that they do not. They don't even aim to. They don't want to understand what's really going on. Ignorance is bliss to the average person, but it's not such a blissful feeling to me, somebody who needs to know and has a quest for knowledge and a thirst for what's right. Then it's never going to sit well. All of the wrong details, the lack of continuity, the lack of anything progressive, it's just all a stalemate. It's all stalled, and it's like everything's paused. We're just waiting for the resume, but by the time things resume, there's going to be many missing pieces to this puzzle, many out of order, so things are not going to make sense. And it's pretty much impossible to not be the victim of other people's mistakes or their guidance. A lot of people are just a victim to other people's leading them into the wrong situation. We're all forced to go with the flow of other people throughout life. It's inevitable. If we're riding in somebody's car, they're driving, we're the victim of their good, of whether or not they're a good driver. It's things like that. Before you step into somebody else's vehicle, you have to think, can this person drive? Am I safe to be with them? But in many cases, we can't really choose our environment or our family or our friends. It's almost as if the orchestrators of our misery want to make sure that we're stuck around the same cast of characters that don't change. But the cast of characters outside of our realm, they are changing. They may not even be here. They never want us to interact with too many new people. They want to keep it like an 80s sitcom, the same cast of characters, the same plot, basically. Very little plot twist, many cliffhangers, and no catharsis, basically. So just remember, your solitude can be your most powerful asset, because if you think too much, you may have a hard time speaking about it. But if you don't think enough, then you can't speak about it. So it's a conundrum. It's a catch-22. But I would say your solitude needs to be your time to reflect, to dig deep on a personal level, and to think. Because in this life, we're always going to be surrounded with distractions, with things that occupy our minds and keep us from forward thinking, or using our executive function to make any important decisions, that sort of thing. And it seems as if the power of suggestion is enough to keep people limited and contained, and that's ultimately what this is. This is containment. It's as if the grand design here is to keep us all in our little quadrants, never deviating too much. Those who interfere with our lives and control our lives are going to not want us to deviate from the norm too much. They want us in those particular patterns that are predictable, that are easy to contain, basically. They don't want free thinking minds together, thinking up good ideas and things like that, or figuring out exactly how disenfranchised and disillusioning the world is. They just simply don't want that to happen. So just keep going against the grain, know your rights. There's a civil, diplomatic way to go about this, to point out flaws and problems, and maybe even acknowledge them enough to fix some of them in our lifetimes, because I can't help but feel like I'm not the only one feeling like it's time for a revolution. That just simply won't happen in my environment. People are too sleepy, and I seem to think most people aren't heavily interfered with, because they would be not functioning at normal capacity. They're testing people like you and me. So let's keep passing the test, and you guys have a great rest of the day if you can. Peace.